Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Avita Oshel, and joining me today is Jessica Schab. Jessica, hi, and welcome.
Hi, Avita. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're very welcome. And Jessica, just to share a little about you for anybody who may be new to your work, Jessica is a spiritual counselor, a mentor, and mystic who is pioneering the way for today's youth into the new spirituality of the 21st century. She has produced a number of popular videos and blogs presenting her views on all aspects of our spiritual reality that can be found on both her YouTube channel as well as her website, jessicamystic.com. And so, Jessica, I'm really glad that we are able to connect because I think, now is the time more than ever to sort of make sense. Especially, I love that your work is geared towards youth who, are growing up today in a world that is full of so many ideas. Of course, our information, technology, all of that is moving so fast. And while many people have woken up and away and stepped away from, religious institutions and such, we still have what I find a lot of spiritual confusion, and a lot of new beliefs and a lot of new paradigms have entrapped a lot of people in the spiritual circles and communities. And so today I'd love to get some of your views on, how to make sense of all this, spiritual and spirituality based ideas, and how to live with spiritual integrity. And I know you share a lot through your videos and on your site, but can you just give us a short summary to sort of illustrate how things started out for you and got you to where you are today?
Oh, wow, that's just a huge question, though. We all have these kind of, either it's a tragedy, which I have a few of, and things that seem to be the worst, like being homeless, ends up being, teaches you so much, humbling you, puts things into perspective. And then combining that with not so paranormal experiences, because I think that's actually normal, that it opens you up to even more of the possibilities and the potential of life and what's really going on. I mean, I share my story in my videos, and I don't sure how much of a time limit we have to go into the detail of the journey, but then so I'll just kind of brief it the best I can. And when I opened myself up to it and decided to explore and just realize that life is a dream, and if you know you're dreaming in a dream, then you can do whatever, right, without any fear. So I just started sharing my message and traveling, and people really connected with it. They invited me to the country to start doing conferences and radio interviews, and all of that was great. But at the same time, I felt like I was put on a pedestal. People would see me and they would think I'm I'm an angel or a goddess or something, and I couldn't do any wrong in their eyes. And that's kind of a dangerous thing that we to do with our spiritual speakers nowadays.
Yeah.
We live in this mentality that the grass is always greener on the other side. Everybody's better, prettier, smarter than us. And we have this obsession with looking pretty, looking smart, looking successful rather than actually being that, looking happy rather than actually being that. And this is something that we never really think too much about, why we're working so much on the exterior. Facebook is a great example too. We have this front, we have what we want people to see of us as opposed to what we really are. And it became very difficult for me because everybody was expecting me to solve their problems. They were asking me to, my message where I just wanted to uplift people and inspire them started to become a lot more deeper and complex when I would go to countries like Poland, and women would ask, well, how do you stop a man from abusing you and respecting you? And I never came across anything like that in my life. I can't tell them just be positive. I started to realize that the solutions that spiritual speakers are giving is only just addressing the symptoms, not the root issue, because no matter the fact remains that all the practices that we have, all the books that we have on love, light, spirituality, meditation, yoga, new diet, people are still suffering and struggling with the very same thing. All it's done is just given us a little distraction and almost like a drug, I find. And I became very concerned about this, and I'm like, I can't continue to promote or allow such a thing. And so then I became controversial in that way, because now everyone's thinking like, I've gone to the dark side in some ways. Wow, she's putting down spirituality. But I mean, these people are talking about how the Western medical industry is all about just keeping people on medication and not interested in really helping people, right? But just having them dependent off of us. Well, in some ways, spiritual speakers are doing the same thing. Yeah. The next book, the next workshop, the next video. And it's not so much the spiritual speakers are doing this, but we ourselves, subconsciously, the followers. Yeah. Because we are just conditioned that way. Even with movie, when we see a movie we like, we want a sequel, we want a prequel, you know. So we want to perpetuate the drama, basically. If you try to tell a story without duality, we are like, no, you have to. There has to be good and evil, otherwise it's boring. But you continue to create separation, and we do that inside ourselves all the time as well. Right brain versus left brain. And when we do that as a parent, if we play, that's like playing favorites with one child over the other. And when we do that with the brain, it creates this imbalance, and then we have this stuff with, oh, the ego is bad, kill your ego. And by saying that, and by taking practices like that, you're saying, kill yourself. And so subconsciously, people are still suicidal and even just self-destructive within themselves. I'm no good. I'm less than. This person is better. Again, that cycle continues. I mean, as a spiritual speaker, going to spiritual conferences with the speakers, the most well-known people that everybody looks up to, what they're like in person, a majority of them are actually suicidal and are thinking about suicide. Is this something right? Is this okay to be speaking and leading people if you are a total mess inside? Yeah. You know, so this is a serious matter. I mean, I'm not turning, I sincerely care. Mm-hmm. And it's not easy to change in such a drastic way to people, but it must be done. People must be shaken up and realize what they're doing. Yeah. Because we can't continue living this way. We're not only destroying ourselves, we're destroying the planet at an alarming rate.
Right. And you know, you bring up so many important topics. And the idea of exactly how this is first and foremost not addressing the root issues, really, and this is what others have also, and I like that others have pointed out too, that we've almost made a business, and I mean, I use the word almost, but really we've made spirituality into a business on a great level. And for the most part are not addressing those root issues because it's you know, again, kind of that perpetuation. But you also pointed out something fantastic, which I'd like to bring up, is that it's not, you know, that other person, maybe the doctor, the teacher, the guru, it's us. We keep following, we keep wanting more, right? And it is unsustainable. How do you help people understand really the simple side of spirituality?
It's really hard because they get offended right away because I challenge them to go past their gods, go past their deities, go past their beliefs, their religion, go past their spiritual jargon. And that's scary for them. That's so scary for them. They think you're attacking their belief or saying, no, this isn't real. Well, I know it's real. I experience it in my heart. But a lot of things are just somebody else's idea that's been pushed on us. Or we just need something so badly to hold on to and to believe in that we fight for the very thing that is enslaving us. It's like the Stockholm Syndrome. You've heard of that, right? Yeah. The people who protected their captors. We're doing that unconsciously. We need to be aware of that if we truly want to be free. Otherwise, we're just spinning in circles. So how do I do it? I'm doing it with my boyfriend, Diego, and we're doing it in a shocking way by really getting people to, it's not enough to get them to be understand and aware of the prison, because I found that just by having people read it's not enough. Oh, that's good, that's interesting, kind of a thing. But when you apply it, when I started to apply it, it was a whole new ballgame of dismantling everything I thought I knew, everything I thought I was, for what you actually are. What is you and what is not you? For example, when I was younger, my mother was full of fear, and she would have fears, really crazy kind of fears. And I realized one day that these are not my fears. Yeah. My friends wanted to go on the bus. No, I can't go on the bus. I'd say I'd get stolen. And I'm 17 years old, and they're like laughing at me. They're like, "Are you kidding? Come on the bus." And then I'm like, "Wow, what else? These are not my fears. What else is not mine?" Yeah. You know, and so I just started to just inquire on that. And people don't tend to inquire on that. They don't intend to ask themselves, why do I search? Why do I need spirituality? Why is it so important? So what we started to do was, I found that applying it and capturing, I've always wanted to do a conscious interactive reality series. I always thought it was so interesting to have something that's not patronizing the audience, that is actually really real, about a day in the life of somebody who is conscious and honest, willing to share all sides of themselves with the world. And I think that's why people really resonated with me, is because I was honest no matter what, even when it wasn't pretty about myself. They really resonated with that, and that really helped them to be able to be honest. It's okay to be honest with myself. It's okay to talk about the most taboo things, because when we do that, it frees other people as well who are struggling with that, thinking they're alone.
Yeah.
So I thought that this would be really neat to capture this and then witness the synchronicities and that magic firsthand. So we actually started to create a reality series documentary, and then we mixed it with like almost like mystery thriller, like the show TV show Lost kind of style and flair altogether. No one's doing something like that. And it's basically facing the fears, but the psychological, the existential fears. Because you've got to show people that what they're freaking out about, what they're scared about, is not actually happening.
Yeah.
But most of the time we get this idea of something that happened to us in the past, and we get so afraid we act like it's happening right now, and we react to it, and we freak out, and we self-destruct, and we also like push everybody who's close to us away. Relationships, kids, family, jobs, and then everything's in disarray. Because we're not aware of what we're doing and what we're really reacting to. So what we've decided to do is really push all the people's red buttons to just, because I mean, there's things that are taboo. As a spiritual speaker, you have to tell people what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. You have to make them feel all light and fluffy inside. But what if you do just the opposite? What if you show them what they don't want to see and change? Because what they're so afraid of is their relationship is not the problem, but their relationship with the problem.
This is, again, so powerful that you're bringing this up. And this is why I felt connected to speak to you about the whole idea of spiritual integrity, because you are putting it into action yourself so transparently. And we need that. We need that so much today, because, you know, over the years, over the decades, over the centuries, we've seen enough of, you know, the facades and all that stuff. So this is fantastic. So this new series, of course, that you have, as you mentioned, and the title is The Myth of Fear. And as you just mentioned, you know, fear has such a big role in our society, and it's not even our own fears.
Yeah.
How else would you say, you know, people can sort of start to embrace that fear and see it for the illusion that it is?
That's a great question. When we were children, we had imaginary friends, right? As we get older, adults, we have imaginary enemies. What happened in between? We need to ask ourselves that. We need to realize that our fear, actually, like I said in my old videos, people think I changed so dramatically, but actually I didn't. I've always felt this way, but I had to bite my tongue because I was always more of I hated conflict. I never want to offend anybody. I thought I was honest. There's a whole other level of honesty that I could go to that would really free myself, because it was creating a friction and a fight inside myself where I can't do this. I have to do this. I can't do. I want to do workshops. I should do workshops. Everybody wants me to, but it doesn't feel right. How do I teach something that is just natural, where it's all inside people? They just play, and if I give a structure to them, or then it becomes kind of military discipline. You know, then they force themselves, and when you force yourself, you take away the spontaneity of it coming to you. It's a scientific fact you learn more when you're not thinking, which is why children are able to learn languages so quickly as well, and why they use such a small percentage of their brain when they go to school, when they're forced to learn. And the fear, if you don't do it right, then you're going to get bad grades, and you're going to be a loser. If you don't do your job, you're going to be a loser. You're going to starve homeless on the street. If you don't go to church, then you're going to go to hell. And if you're not a spiritual person, then you're going to have all this karma and problems, you know, in the world. So, I mean, there's always this form of terrorism. Really. What is terrorism? That, you know, is something you're forced to do because if you don't do it, something bad is going to happen to you and your loved ones. Well, how often are we doing that inside of ourselves? Yeah. We don't like the Illuminati, but we are the Illuminati. We give them power every day by how we think. We don't like that they keep secrets from us. What about the secrets we keep from ourselves? What about the lies we tell ourselves? We don't like that they control us. We're controlling ourselves and creating military mind inside ourselves all the time. We don't like the law and the system, but we're judging ourselves all the time. When we were kids and we were drawing, we never judged ourselves. We didn't care if it was outside of lines or if we made a purple frog. So what? But now, like, art has literally been killed in creativity because we have this structure. We go to art school, and it tells us how to do things and how to do it successfully. And that's very dangerous. When I worked at the animation studio, I found artists who loved to draw suddenly hated to draw. Their passion was taken away from them because they were forced to do it in a corporate kind of a way.
Yeah.
And this is really sad. This is a travesty. We need to really be aware of what we're doing. We need to face all of our fears and realize, why are we living for other people? Because one of the things that we're really focusing on is the link of the rise of spirituality and the rise of depression. Because if you notice the charts, they're very similar. And we need to see that actually people who are depressed are actually at a very point in their life, because they are either at the point where they end it within themselves, or what is actually happening. Why are you depressed is because you're struggling. You know that something is not right, and you're being forced to fit in something that is not in your natural nature. You're being forced to do a job you don't like, to be something you're not, and all of this creates this frictionless depression. Mm-hmm. And if they are to be aware of that, like, these are the people we're wanting to focus on, because they feel something inside of them is fighting, that there's something not right. But the people who have accepted it, who are normal and believe they're normal, how can you help them? Right? They are completely a zombie. And they're pushing the depressed people. What's wrong with you? You need to snap out of it. Just get a job. Just start being happy. No.
Yeah.
So it's about inquiring deeper. It's about thinking, is this really how I want to live my life? Do I really want to struggle in this Western country, or do I want to live somewhere simpler, for example? And when you do travel, I suggest it because you get to finally hear your thoughts. You get to finally decide. We use the metaphor of, imagine what spiritual speakers or anybody would be like if you lived on a lost island, a deserted island, all by yourself. All the things that you do and think, you wouldn't have so much of those problems anymore, because most of them come from what we think other people want from us. If all of that was taken away, what do you think we would be doing with our time and our thoughts? Do you think we would be running ourselves in a circle and so self-destructive, or do you think we would start to become very, very creative and able to really communicate and connect with nature? So this is what I suggest people do in getting back to your question, is remembering how they were when they were children, their imaginary friends to imaginary enemies. What are their enemies really? What's you, what's not you? And dismantling, vomiting. In some ways, the videos that we're doing are not pleasant. They're very hard for people to watch, which is why we say it's kind of a thriller. It's scary. But people nowadays like horror movies. They like thrillers, but not something like this. Not something so close inside themselves that they need to deal with once and for all. And even again with the spiritual practices, people are obsessed with yoga and meditation and saying this is the way. And we need to do organic gardening, all the while we are tearing down, particularly in Bali. Bali is crazy for spirituality in a way that it's extremely scary and disturbing, because they're tearing down the jungles to make more yoga studios and more meditation studios, because we're so independent that we forgot how to breathe. And if you need breathing classes, well, that's because what creates the oxygen in the air, but the trees. To cut them down, of course you're going to need a place to go and learn how to breathe. So it's just quite annoying to see and hear people talking so strongly about spirituality and thinking we need more yoga studios, again, making a commercial, or eating and not seeing the starving dogs in front of them, not observing at all. Just, again, the idea of looking and sounding spiritual rather than actually being spiritual, actually being conscious, being aware of your surroundings. I was with people who are talking spiritual in a car. All kinds of things that you would think, wow, so conscious. But they were running over ducks on the road. So, I mean, what is spiritual but being sensitive and encouraging that innocence and that creativity again, to just really, really be ourselves regardless of what others think. Yeah. And seeing and letting it all go, letting all these man-made structures that have enslaved us for a millennium. Over and over, the same pattern: religion, following and wanting to be like an ascended master or like a god. And when you read the Bible, you see how disturbing and insecure and schizophrenic this God is. And people want to be like that.
Yeah.
What does that do to our psyche subconsciously? I know that's a hard one to swallow for a lot of people, and that'll be very offensive, but it's the truth. These ideas that we have that this God is going to come back one day and say what the right religion, it doesn't matter what religion they say, it's going to create a war. I'm sorry, I thought this was about peace.
Yeah.
How can that be about peace? So, I mean, it's just for us to ask these questions and to let it all go. And we're searching for happiness, and when we're kids, we don't have a reason to be happy. We can be busy for hours with a box or a balloon, right? Mm-hmm. And then as we get older, we're like, I'll be happy when this happens, when that happens, when I get a nice house, when I have the perfect partner, and when I retire. And then we're on our deathbed, we're wondering what happened to our happiness. Children don't need a reason to be happy because they know that's what they are. When you're happy, you're not thinking or pursuing it. We forgot to just live. Because rather than search all the time. And when you search, you can never, ever, ever find. I'll give you an example. How many times have we say, we lost the keys, we're looking everywhere for the keys, you don't find them, so you give up and you start making dinner. What happens? You suddenly find the keys. When you stop looking, you find your partner when you stop looking. And this is the thing. Yeah. Passionate.
Well, and I love your passion, and I love the frankness, it's a rare quality today and something that I admire very much because we need to hear this kind of stuff and all the stuff that you're sharing. And you brought up so many fantastic points. I'd love to touch upon some of them a little bit into more detail. And you brought up Bali, which is something I'd love to just mention to our audience that if they do see that our audio or video quality is a little bit different, it is because, again, Jessica is joining us all the way from Bali in Indonesia. So one aspect that is a big, big theme in the spiritual communities is this idea of ascension. And a lot of people, the 2012 leading up to it, it was a big theme. 2012 passed, and there's still so many people I find who are being led down that road, always looking to the bright future rather than being in the now. Can you help, people kind of make sense of this a little?
First of all, the idea of ascension is extremely dangerous. The idea that you're just going to evolve and go to another dimension if your mind is a total mess. I'm sorry, man is quarantined for a reason. There's a reason that we're not interacting with ETs in the way that we would like. Is because you're a mess. If you can't take care of yourself, your loved ones, your planet, you cannot go to another planet. And sorry, what are we going to do? Put up a McDonald's? And the idea that some being is going to come and save us is really irresponsible. We made this mess. Yeah. And we're expecting some being to come and bail us out. It's like making a mess of your room and saying, no, I don't have to clean it. My mom will do it, or I'll just move to another room. No, it doesn't work like that. Mm-hmm. We have to mature. We have to stop. And the other danger of it is like a date, putting a date one day, someday. And you're right about that, because what are we really saying unconsciously? That I am the enemy today because I am not good enough today. Mm-hmm. But maybe one day tomorrow, I will be a better person. And one day tomorrow, things will ascend and shift and be all better. We'll just wake up and it will all change. And it's such an easy escape, a cop-out, from doing the responsibility, to looking at ourselves and seeing how we created this. Because I feel that if this is a dream, and we are aware of that, as quick as we created the nightmare, we can we can change it. A lot of horrible things happened around the time of 2012 on Facebook. And newspaper articles of people who were so expecting a shift and so caught up in channelers and this and that they were told. One story in particular I heard in Peru of a man who was told that his newborn baby was the Antichrist, so he killed his child. And then he thought he was going to send in shift in 2012, and then nothing happened, and he killed himself. Hmm. And this is the thing, so many people in some ways they died inside as well because of this hope and waiting, and then they find that they're still in the same situation, this problem kind of a thing. And who is responsible for that? All these people that talked about 2012 and made this idea, this hope that it was going to get better. And keep giving the power to these beings that if any beings are interacting with us that are multidimensional, they've got to be confused as well. We can only draw and attract if we are confused, then we will draw and attract that. And this idea of disclosure project it's another scam, because this idea that ETs are going to come and work with our government, I'm sorry, any ETs that work with our government I want nothing to do with, because I'm sure if these ETs were really as wise, they would never deal with our government because they would know they were crooked, right? So if these ETs are working with our government, then there's obviously going to be some other hidden agenda. And maybe they'll use celebrities to promote it as well, which will create another form of a trap, another enslavement, because, again, we keep giving our power away to people outside of us. I feel what we need to do is, again, when we were children, we could play for hours on our own. We were never bored. We were never lonely. And we were in our own little world, and we were cultivating that, co-creating that. And this is what we need to do again. We need to remember that world. And we need to just give all the attention and focus to that world and live there, because we came to a point where we were living there, and then our parents and our peers and societies like, you need to let that go now and live in this world. And that's the fake matrix counterfeit world that we were sold. Fake truth, fake idea of love. People think love is the answer. I'm sorry, love is another form of fear, because when you have love, you're so afraid to lose it. If light is the answer, then so much light creates blindness. And love is also blind, no? This is controversial. This is scary, but this is, again, the truth. So much love and light completely blinds people to. They start to choose sides again, light versus dark, and fear the dark. But without this dark, we wouldn't have the night sky. We wouldn't have the stars. We wouldn't be able to appreciate the stars. No. So it's not about love. It's not about light. Go to the Amazon and tell me that nature is love. Please tell me that nature is love when even a butterfly tries to eat you. It's not about that. It's about co-creation. So when you create your inner world and cultivate and nurture that inner world, how you see fit, then you start to live in the way nature does. If you watch here in Bali, there's so much diverse, different life here, and each of them are all doing their own thing. Yeah. And it's incredibly imaginative and creative. I mean, this is another issue I have with God. If God is the answer for everything, what does that do to our imagination? It's like going to school and having an examination, but no need to study, no need to think, because all the answers is God. How do you inquire deeper when it suddenly stops right then and there? When you look at nature, it's always doing something different, always evolving, it's always playing, and it's just so, you just learn so much. I mean, this is what started my messages to begin with, is my conversations with trees and what trees think about us and how we're living in our journey. Became the message, which led to the interview with Project Camelot, which led to conferences, and it was all about just don't meditate, don't do any of these practices that force you to try to be spiritual. It happens spontaneously. It happens while you're playing, when you're in awe and wonder. Don't care about the answers, because the answers abduct you, and then you can't be yourself anymore. You become that answer.
This is what's so wonderful, is that you're bringing up so many deep-seated ideas for people to really face and consider for themselves as to, what does all this mean to them, right? Because it's often just all too easy to just read a book, watch a video, or perhaps get something in a nice, neat little package that you can just, from one to the next. And something that I'm extremely passionate about too is taking personal accountability. And that's a theme I'm hearing so much from your messages as well. So I know you've touched upon also about this idea of, even karma, and that's just one belief that has been, I guess, changed around in many ways and misunderstood by many. But really what we have today is so many new beliefs, new rituals, that whether people are coming at it from the shamanism background, or whether they're coming at it from, crystals or energy healing, there's just so much that mimics and reflects the old religious, limited ways that we have kind of accepted and ascribed to. What else can we do to break out of these limiting belief patterns and really see beyond them? Perhaps use them if it's a journey, it's a step, but really to keep moving, not to get stuck.
you need to really be aware of the pattern and how it works. How you are, when we dismantle one thing, we need to get rid of one program, like, I'm no longer religious, now I'm spiritual. That's another program. They need to be aware of the nature of the prison and how it works. Yeah. They need to be aware of what they're saying when they're talking about God or when they're talking about sin or karma, combining all the faiths, because sin and karma are the same thing in different packages and cast of characters. Both are saying something you've done in your past life that you don't even remember, you deserve to suffer now. So therefore, we're going to keep punishing ourselves for the past over and over. You're no good sinner, therefore you have to spend your life kissing the ass of God in order to seek approval, and never ever get to really explore who you really are, because you're lost to this idea of God and how you should be and what is a good person and so forth, which creates a bunch of wars, which creates more separation. Mm-hmm. So that's one part of it. So when you're aware of the prison and how it works, and you start to see how every day the way you think, the way you feel, how you're enslaving yourself. So you start to observe beyond the thoughts. Where are these thoughts coming from? Again, is that me? You start to be aware that your emotions are actually not your emotions. They're just like these implants, all of this is a collective ether in the air that we pick up. We're like radio stations, and our antennas are tuned into whatever is being broadcasted telepathically, ethically, like subliminal messages in media. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you fall asleep with a TV or radio on, you get a whole bunch of other, you get the actual subliminal messages, which is join the military and stuff like that, consume. And so we do. So, but once you're aware of that, once you see how it works, we just want people to be really aware of the prison and how it works and how we're doing it to ourselves so that we can step out of it. And we're not just doing it through a reality series, we're also doing it through a physical center that we're creating here in Bali as well. And then people can create it like not quite a franchise, but in a way like a franchise, in that the same kind of it brought to other countries as well. So not just in Bali, other places for people to dismantle and work on their fears and be really, really honest with other people as well, without charging them anything, without pushing any belief on them. About having them, and having no beliefs is not a belief still, like people are saying, because that's a fresh mind. When you're children, you have no beliefs, you don't care about God, you don't care about spirituality, you don't care about enlightenment, and you're happy and you're free. You're able to do the most incredible things.
Yeah. And I think, the idea really comes down to a lot of the attachment. It's, because we can, again, the English language, whatever language is limiting, and we can play semantics back and forth, but really it's that non-attachment, that whether you have beliefs or not, it's just release, simplifying, like you said, get back to nature, get back to that childlike state. Now,
don't care. Yep. Just don't care about it. It's backwards to think that by fixing the body, by giving it the right food and all these great spiritual things and the latest products, that you can help heal yourself, because it doesn't work that way. The mind disease, diseasement in the mind. If we ignore that for a certain amount of time, it filters into the body. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so you have to work on the mind first, and then the body follows. Yep. If you do the mind, only the body, then the mind continues to affect the body. Yeah. I've met people who are very healthy. They smoke. They do everything that we are like. The New Agers would be like, whoa, no. But they're healthy because their mind is so clear and so free. They're not partying. They're not crazy. They're not like, this is the thing. Most spiritual people, I'm sorry, are totally messed up. They're totally struggling, and they're putting on this front about it. Yeah. And doctors, when they work on people, if you have a physical ailment and say is in the hand, that doesn't necessarily mean that's where the pain comes from. Just because it shows up in the hand, there's a root of it. And I find that whenever I would do healing, it would always be just, look, this is what you're doing. This is why this kind of a belief, this kind of idea, this self-punishment filters out into the body because it protests. That's why I say pain, and we think pain is bad, and we fear the pain, and we have a bad relationship with our pain, but pain is not bad. It's a messenger that needs to be addressed to the right address. It's communication. Exactly. That is what real love is communication, understanding, unconditional. Yeah. Trees give fruit, flowers, leaves, shade, comfort, and beauty unconditionally, regardless of who you are, what you have, what you believe, and what you've done. And never once say, you owe me for my services. Well, it's the idea that you're bringing up in so many levels when it comes to even our health.
This is why, same thing when I talk to people, it's the idea that there's no diet perfect enough to sort of fix a mind that is in a state of disease. And that's why I really,
correct.
admire and support sort of the film, I don't know if you've heard of it, The Cure Is, because it targets right to the root of the issue that, yes, toxins and diet and all those things, they have a huge role, no doubt, but it's our mind that is at the root of really what's going to be happening or not happening. And so as you, continue your work, I know, again, as we mentioned at the beginning, youth and addressing and sort of, trying to make sense of what is going on in the world of spirituality and with all these different topics and ideas is a large part of your work. And today I know, there's so many youths who are reaching for alcohol, for different drugs, trying to get out of their mind, because there's so much stuff, so much fear going on in our world. What sort of maybe tips do you have for young people, especially in their teens, in their 20s perhaps, who are growing up and trying to figure out what the heck is going on here?
I mean, they're only doing it because they're numbing themselves, because drugs are everywhere. And I'm not talking about the physical drugs, because there's nothing wrong with drugs in itself. There's nothing wrong with a bottle of wine. It's the abuse of it, right? So, I mean, it's the existential drugs. It's already what they think of themselves and how they feel they need to be. I mean, most relationships don't work out because of the 6 illusions that we have. In the relationship, there's who you think you are and who you think your partner is. And then what you would like your partner to be, what you would like yourself to be, and what you think love is and what they think love is. And that is why relationships don't work out, because they're all illusions to begin with. You never get to fully be yourself. And that's the thing with kids. They never get to fully be themselves. I mean, they never get to, whenever they have an idea or something they want to do, they get excited about, they immediately get discouraged. So their energy goes from constructive to destructive very fast. And this is what makes them want to turn to drugs. Because they're depressed, because they're not allowed to be who they are. And as soon as, they're able to speak, people are pushing their ideas on them of how they need to be and you need to believe this and you need to strive for that. And all this fear and worry about how you're going to survive. And when you don't worry about it, I find the less you think about it, the more it kind of works out. Particularly financially, the more we worry about, most people who talk to me about their financial worries, it's always next month. This month they're fine. And they've had this pattern for 10, 20, 30 years. So they're killing themselves by that stress, by that worry, which is a total illusion to begin with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and we're doing that to the kids right away. And so they're being forced to be something they're not. And that creates this depression, this stress. And so they start to naturally want to numb themselves with drugs. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's no difference to me in cocaine and spirituality. It's the same thing. Then they're both dangerous by the overuse and the abuse. Alcohol, same thing. And my sister died because her friend was drinking and driving. And they were wealthy, and so she got off scot-free. And, there was no, it was like a horrible unjust. And I could be angry at people who drink and drive and alcohol. But I realized that there's something behind that. There's something a lot more sinister that we're doing to ourselves, because we are giving in to these lies about because the majority people believe this, then it must be true. Yeah. Actually, no, majority can be seriously mentally ill, and that's what is the case right now. But once you're aware of that, you're no longer depressed. You're no longer upset, because you see now it's not you. It's the conflict and friction between, I need to be like this, but I can't. And back and forth. I need to fit in, but I can't. Yeah. Once you realize that, let that go, it changes. You suddenly can breathe again.
Yeah, it's that suppression of truth that is, so detrimental to our well-being. Mm. And so, I know that we've, touched upon so many wonderful topics and ideas, but some people who are listening or watching this might still be saying, but I appreciate perhaps having some kind of a spiritual teacher in my life or somebody to guide me until I can perhaps be more comfortable. Is there any advice you can leave for them to sort of at least have a more of a discerning idea of how would you say we can connect with somebody who is more spiritually in tune and not trying to guide us down the path of just vicious cycles?
I mean, I understand a lot of people really get offensive when I talk about their spiritual speakers being a fake or something like that. And they're like, no, they've helped me. They've done this and that for me. And first of all, they did it for themselves. Nobody did it for them, right? It's all me, or if you want to understand it, it's because of you, not because of me. You don't have to thank me. You don't have to thank God, because it's you. And so when you are content with yourself, you see you don't need it. Like, we are paying for an education right now, saying that we don't know, that somebody else has to tell us and give us this piece of paper to determine our worth and our right. But we knew all along. So that's why we get in debt and become enslaved by that very education, and that's why we become addicted, because we keep thinking it's them, and it's not us. Sure, they're helpful to a degree, but I mean, why are you searching to begin with, and how are you still? Like, they need to look at what the issue is, because I know people who go to the spiritual workshop or study this and that, and they say it's great, because they have to say it's great, because if they don't, then they feel like the truth of it is that they were ripped off and they're angry, and they don't want to admit that they made a mistake and wasted their time and energy and that it wasn't in vain, so they convince themselves that this helped them. Again, another placebo effect. So just be aware of that, and let it go, because again, when you were a kid, you didn't need that, you didn't care, and you were happy. You don't need a reason to be happy, because you just are. When you're thinking and searching, you can't possibly be happy. When you're studying or listening to someone else, I mean, then people say, well, why are we listening to you? Okay, fair enough. But what we're doing is we're not making you addicted to us. We're pushing you guys to stand on your own. We're pushing you guys to just dismantle. We're not adding more layers.
Yeah. Good advice, very good advice. And as we wrap up, is there any other sort of tips or practical, because again, I love giving people something practical that they can take away rather than, theories and ideas sometimes that just kind of keep stories going. Any final practical tips and advice for helping people live from a space of spiritual integrity that you would like to share?
Again, just be honest with yourself. Ask yourself why you're doing this. Is it you? Is it not you? And to just play, to communicate with nature. I was always doing helping people after the damage has been done. Now I'm interested in having people be so aware of what they're doing that they don't even do that damage to begin with. I give some exercise on our Facebook wall and our Facebook group about having people be aware even how they are so afraid of their creativity, and how when you start to be creative, it shows you how many structures you have, in the way that if you paint, or if you set some time for yourself to paint, you fight it. We're fighting our creativity. We're fighting our originality. So I just kind of want people to do little exercises where they can be aware of where they are set up their walls, their limits, and their beliefs, and to bust through them.
So Jessica, thank you so much for sharing everything that you have. I know that these are not always easy topics to talk about and really look at on a deeper level. But something that I think we need to, if we are going to take our life here, our experience, our physical experience, our spiritual experience seriously. And so thank you for really bringing up a lot of the topics that can cause us to make shifts and changes in our life, and really take the idea of living our life with integrity on a more serious level. So thanks so much, Jessica, for joining us. Now, do you have any events or any other new projects that you'd like to share just before we wrap up?
I just wanted to thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to share, and providing the energy and the space to feel comfortable enough to not hold back in any way. This is the first video interview I've ever done where I've been able to share in the way that I have. So I really thank you and appreciate that you did that for me. And as far as where people can follow along more, there's my website, jessicamystic.com. There's the End of Fear Weebly, the website, and and then there's the Facebook group. There's also the series. People are also welcome to be interviewed with it as well. And there's also coming to see us physically in Bali. You're more than welcome to come visit us in Bali as well. Evita, we'd love to have you.
Sounds good. And you are so very welcome. And, something that I think is always important, and something I try to do through the guests that I feature, is just really show the diverse and different aspects of our human family, and also that everybody should be allowed to, share their truth. And it doesn't mean that it has to be our truth, but simply to be able to honor, the truth of another, no matter what or how we may feel about it. So I really, really appreciate, having you. So thank you so much again for joining us. And again, for anybody who is interested in reading more, seeing some of those videos that you are now producing, again, jessicamystic.com is where you can begin, or on Jessica's YouTube channel. And so thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And until next time.